Well, that's a mandate that has been created recently by the member party to the Aarhus Convention, precisely to respond to the need expressed by defenders, saying that they're facing threats, attacks coming either from the state or from companies. So the states party to the Aarhus Convention has decided to establish what they call a rapid response mechanism dedicated to respond immediately to the needs expressed by defenders. And in that capacity, I will be able to respond immediately, to investigate on the situation, and then to speak to the states on the situation, asking the states to respond to my communications. One important component is that companies are sometimes the most dangerous actors against environmental defense and local communities. And I also have the possibility not only to talk to states, but to companies as well, and I will use this new privilege of this mandate. That's indeed a very interesting convention that has been adopted 25 years ago. The aim of the convention was at that time to establish a sort of environmental democracy. And it's based on 3 pillars. One is access to information. States have an obligation to provide information to all people, communities, indigenous people that might be affected by an environmental project. And information should be provided in their language that is accessible to anyone, so that everyone could understand the impact on the communities of a new project. The second pillar is public participation, meaning that those who are or might be affected by a project need to be consulted, in fact, properly consulted, and you have very clear guidelines on how to organize consultations. And then you have the third pillar, which is very new, very useful. It's access to justice and reparation and redress. When rights have been violated, then access to justice is guaranteed. And what is important is that this convention is a legally binding instrument, meaning that states have an obligation to respect and to fulfill all the obligations of the convention. And my mandate is anchored in that convention, meaning that my mandate is also the first instrument which is built in a legally binding instrument, which is something very important and very different from other rapporteurs. First, I want to hear the voice of those who are currently facing threats and risk, and that's why I'm going to organize a series of regional consultations, inviting defenders, sometimes living in rural places, individuals far from the capitals, to meet with me, to better understand their expectations, their needs, but also to explain the mandate. One of my concerns is that the broad family of indigenous people, local communities, environmental defenders, they don't know how to be protected by the UN. So we need to inform them and share with them how to approach the mandate, how to seize the mandate when they want to be protected. So I'm going to organize first 3 consultations in the broad area of the Aarhus Convention, that's mostly the broad Europe. And then in 2024, again, I will organize consultations in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, and in the Middle East. Why? Simply because companies operate abroad. And sometimes you have companies that operate from France or from UK, from Spain, that operate in Latin America, Africa, and are doing harm to defenders. And I also want to hear those who are affected not only by the government, by European companies operating abroad. And then I will have the possibility also to provide protection measures and to speak to the CEOs of those companies. And that's something which is very much encouraging for me to see that we have a possibility also to have access to companies. My great concern was the case also in my previous mandate, is that we see that states are not providing a safe and enabling environment for defenders. And although we have provided a lot of guidance, tools, recommendations on how to establish a safe and enabling environment for defenders, it's not the case in fact. And in more and more countries we see that the space is shrinking. States are taking more and more legally binding measures to restrict the work of organizations. We see that there's an increasing trend currently in many countries, including EU states, to vilify the work of defenders and to launch large campaigns of defamation, calling them eco-terrorists or against progress or anti-development. And it's not only attacks against the people, but it's also attacks against the cause for which they are trying to fight. So the space is shrinking. You don't have a safe and enabling environment in many countries, and that's a matter of concern for me. In addition to that, you see that many young people are using new forms of mobilization, like civil disobedience, which is allowed by international obligations. The international law is clear that that's a form of mobilization which is authorized, in fact. But nonetheless, you see that states are again passing new legislation to restrict access to those forms of mobilization. And you see that judges in many countries are pushing very harsh measures against those who are trying to use those forms of mobilization. So we need to understand better how we could work on civil disobedience to make sure that judges would also apply more soft measures against those who are using those measures. And that's mostly young people, those who are concerned by what's happening now with global warming and climate change. And they are precisely pushing and decide to break the law because they think that the cause is more important and that they are facing then reprisals and fines coming from the justice system, which is for me a matter of great concern. And the last point maybe is reprisals. We see more and more people, including young people, that are coming to the UN, speaking to rapporteurs, speaking to treaty bodies, using the UPR cycle to speak also to the UN, and in return, because they have spoken to UN, are facing retaliation coming from the state or from security forces, being called by the police to reveal what they have shared with the UN, and that's a worrying trend that we see in many parts of the world. That's very simple. On the website of UNEC, there is a link by which you can put a complaint. It's a very simple link, a very simple form. No need to put a report, but simply provide information. Then I would investigate to make sure that the mandate is not manipulated, and then to double check the information from different sources, and then immediately would take action. That's a rapid response mechanism. I need to react immediately. So after a couple of days, I would take action. People will not be informed that I've been taken action, but after 60 days, they will see on my website my letter to the state and the response from the state. From the state. In case of life being at risk, people risking to be like abducted or killed, then they also have the possibility to reach out to me, and immediately after a couple of hours, I will go public with a statement or a press release naming the name of the country, naming the name of the people, if they so wish, to raise awareness on the danger that they're facing. Very simple.